We should be good. Okay. Why does that sound tinny? Ah, thank you. We're all right. Still seems that shouldn't be like that. Well, we'll make do.
It smells like it's coming from there.
Yeah, because that one should be able to be on.
Are you throwing your voice here?
No, it just,
What if you turn yours off? And I talked. Is that better? That's better. There's a little bit of feedback, is there? I bet. I think these buttons.
Hello.
hello? That's good, thank you. Perfect. Perfect. All right, welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I thought since we didn't have something that we needed to discuss between the committee as a whole, I asked Daryl if we could do a presentation on TrackMIBallot. I've sent some of you some information about it, but Walker is going to be beta testing this for KCI, and we're very excited about it, so I thought it's a perfect opportunity to share it with all of you. So this is the PowerPoint that's included in your packet. Do you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay, I'll let you.
All right.
I'll scroll, you talk.
All right. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Brian Quist. I'm the owner and president of KCI. We're a family-owned printing and mailing company here in West Michigan in Kentwood. And we have trucks that go around the area and pick up mail every day. So starting in about the disaster that was the Wisconsin election, I started to think about how we could use our printing and mailing capabilities to help people in Michigan with vote by mail, because I saw it as what the future of mail was, what the future of voting was going to be, and the challenges that are unique to Michigan with our home rule system, where we have a lot of small mailers. We don't have any counties that can write $1 million to buy a big sorting machine, but I still happen to have one of those sorting machines. So I started to think, well, how could we help? And I had about 18 ideas. And they didn't work, and they didn't work, and they didn't work. But finally, it all kind of came together. And Sarah's been really a huge help for us, because I'd come over and say, what does a label look like? And she'd show it to me, and I'd go back to the office and look at it. And I'd say, what does this number mean? And I don't think really understood how it all connected, the dots connected. But with the information that Sarah gave me, and with the understanding, we got to understand how the ballots are printed and how the barcodes on the labels are printed. We figured out that we can track mail from the clerk to the voter and the voter back, and we can give the voter the ability to see that process in action. So yeah, so it's we developed it with the input of Sarah and other Michigan clerks, but we use the barcode on the outside of the envelope, on the label, which is the voter ID. And on our sorting machine, we sort 40,000 ballots an hour. We can read that barcode. We can associate it with a trackable USPS barcode. And then we download it to our tracking partner, Snailworks. And they have a whole system that the clerk will be able to log into and track an individual ballot via the voter ID, or see the ballots in a bigger picture with reporting. And at the end of the election cycle, they can say, okay, I'm going to download every scan the Postal Service saw for all my ballots. They can get all the scans. So what this does is, and this is really timely if you've been reading Twitter at all this morning, that we can provide 100% tracking through the mail, and that obviously gives a lot of confidence to the voters, a lot of confidence to elected officials, and that we can have provable results. So this is really the future of how ballots will be mailed. So yeah, with the post offices, a lot of people don't really understand how much information the post office has with every piece of mail, but it's tracked for many scans all the way through, and they keep track of all that, even for a letter mail scan. The other thing that we figured out how to do is we figured out how to save postage at the same time. So the post office has a special rate for nonprofits, and they allow clerks to use that rate to mail ballots. And so we're able to take an 18.4 cent postage rate where it would have been 65 cents. And so we are able to track mail for less than the cost of the postage without us. So it's like a win-win-win. Everyone wins. Post office gets mail, that's much easier to handle. The clerk gets visibility and saves postage. So yeah, we'll be putting this mail out. Our first go around is tomorrow. We got mail going on the machine, and we'll be tracking ballots. And yeah, the units can see the different views. They can see bar graphs of when the deliveries are happening. And the other thing is when you get a piece back, and let's say it's after the election, you can say, what happened to this piece? You can scan the barcode, the postal barcode, and pull up on the screen and see all of its destination, where that went. Was it even put in the mail in time? Was it not put on the mail in time? So it's a big help. We also try to design the system to work with what election clerks are doing today. So it's a little more work, maybe a lot more work, but it's possible with our current system. So they didn't have to go out and buy new envelopes or different things. We have a trackable label that we're putting on the return piece with a website on it, so the voter can go and look at that website to figure out what's happening, and with an explanation of the tracking. The other thing that we're able to offer is an email notification to the voters with proof of mailing for the clerk. So we'll send the email to the voter. The voter will have a little link to a URL. The URL will show their mail piece going to their house, the day it was delivered, and then if they put it back in the mail, we'll see the scans as it goes back to the clerk. And then obviously the clerk will scan it back into the QVF system, which they'll be able to see on the state site. So we've been able to do it at a pretty reasonable cost, I think, where, again, we can pay for most of it with postage savings alone. So, yeah, we hope it's going to be big. We hope that a lot of units will see the value that Sarah has and her team, and has been great for us. So, thanks.
So the only thing I have to add is we mailed our first batch of mass mailing today, 11 trays of ballots. Unbelievable for the city of Walker. We normally do 4 to 6 trays our first mailing. And so we have the tracking on, so if anybody's, such as I know Roxanne has given her application for her ballot to us, when you receive your ballot, you will see on the little bottom corner of your green inside envelope, it'll be a barcode, but on top it says in writing, TrackMIBallot. And so that will be the barcode that he's talking about. And so we're very excited to try this and be on the front end of all this great technology and this beta test. And then, we work out the kinks, I'm sure, for August, but November, I think it'll be 100% fabulous, and people will love it because they will want to know when they're going to get their ballot, or when it's going to hit, when they get it, and then when we get it, and they're going to be able to have that confirmation that they know we received their ballot. We do get calls. We get calls almost daily, closer to elections. Did you receive my ballot? So, a lot of out-of-state ballots that we don't get for weeks, months. It will be really nice to be able to track those, and hopefully I see this progress being even more positive, because I'm hoping that communications can help the USPS finding out where the missing links are and why some ballots take 6 weeks from Michigan to Walker, or from Walker to Walker takes 3 weeks, or from Florida to Walker. And so I see this as a big bonus to help figure out where the lags are and how we can make this better for the future. Any questions?
Commissioners, anything?
Question. First of all, I think this is a fantastic idea. I love the innovation and how you're thinking through what needs to be done. I think a lot of people will feel reassured to know that they have some control over their ballot and it's not just disappearing into a box. So,
Exactly.
I noticed the price is quite reasonable, or seems to be, and this is more of a question for you, Sarah. I was curious if we have tapped in any of the CARES Act money to help cover some of these costs, or?
Not for this.
Okay.
The CARES Act is for PPE. They've also came out with a new email today, actually, that we got for drop boxes.
Yep.
Letter opener, like to open in ballots. Actually, Dymo labelers. What else? If you need additional, like high-speed scanners or tabulators, signage, like 6 feet distancing, poles, and anything, sneeze guards, all that kind of stuff. They have came out with an email to us and asked us to submit our order for
Okay.
anything that we needed.
But something like this wouldn't,
But not this, no.
Okay.
This is basically processing of absentee ballots.
okay, just curious. All right, thanks.
Yep.
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So there are labels and there are barcodes that are actually like stick-on, or is it like printed on?
It's a label, it's a barcode on a label that's stuck onto the ballot envelope. Ballot envelope.
So technology-wise, or how do you ensure it's not, that it's totally waterproof, it doesn't fall off, it doesn't get caught in a machine?
It's the post office, so we're not 100%, but we're at 98, 99.
You
It-
tested it.
It'll be pretty bulletproof, but it's the post office, and it's the voters who put stuff on backwards, or, those kind of things too. So, there won't be, it's not 100% solution. But
The
yeah,
good
it
news
will.
is the label that you put on, or you had us put on, they don't come off very easy.
Oh, good.
So they can't take them off and move them around like they sometimes try to do with their address label. They think they just need to move their address label around, and they try to move those around. And they peel off and they can reapply them, but these stay on. So I can guarantee you of that.
That's good. This has been, I think we had the finalized idea about 4 weeks ago to understand how fast this has all come together.
He has worked
So
24 hours a day.
We bought a
He's
million cover-up labels, and Grand Rapids Label produced them in like a week. So, yeah.
So have you ever thought about, once you get this locked in, this process and procedure locked in, working with like Secretary of State with, license? I'm dealing with that right now. You mailed out your check and your paperwork so that you could get your tags with COVID and stuff. Obviously it's hypersensitive, but, everything's gonna be delayed, but it would be a great process for someone who calls in and talks to someone to say, oh, did it get scanned? Where is it in the process of delivery?
Yeah. Apparently there is a big ballot tracking company that there's rumors out there working with Secretary of State. I'm just a little guy, but I'm faster and my software is better and I have better customer service. So it sounds like going to provide one-way tracking out just for the general. And we got both ways, so, I think it's only half the battle is getting it to the voter. But I talked to the Director of Elections at the state, and in this little web page that's produced for each ballot showing the voter their tracking outgoing and incoming, that could easily be given. I would give that to Secretary of State. They could publish that on the web page where you go and log in and see your voter information. You could click on that and see it right from the Secretary of State's page. That's my dream.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like a FedEx or a UPS
Yep.
tracking number to kind of say, well, did it make it there? Or is it coming back? It'd be kind of a nice option for the person who's mailing it, and also to kind of know where your envelope and your tags are, et cetera.
Yep. For the ballot, we've got that covered. We'd love to find other ways to do it.
So you'll have to go on to TrackMIBallot when you return your ballot, and you can, because that's what it is. It's just like FedEx, UPS, it's a tracking, yep.
So the email portion, we're still a couple of days out on, so we had some issues. The first batch might not get email notifications. I hope by Thursdays they're out, they're done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very exciting. And thank you, Brian, for all your hard work. You've
Thanks.
been amazing.
Well, you've been a real big help to us,
Thanks.
too.
Okay, that's it, that's all we have.
Good, thank you, Brian. So Frank, we can either jump to any prelims on this, or we can get commissioner comments, get that out of the way, and be ready to rear and to go at 7 o'clock. That sound like a plan?
Your call. 10 minutes is probably progressing the master plan part,
Okay,
so maybe we can wait until the 7 o'clock.
okay,
I
perfect,
would prefer to wait till
perfect.
7.
Yep. All right, so we'll do that then. Commissioner Kent?
I'm good. Little construction, gas line going in, but I have not heard anything. I've got one call about grass mowing, and I forwarded that to Megan, so no, all is well, and the updates keep coming in, so that's good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner DeShane,
None, thank you.
Commissioner Heisinger.
We had good turnout tonight at the pop can drive, and then it was great to meet with the employees and see them again Thursday at the cookout too.
All right, Commissioner Groders.
Maybe just a question about the July meetings. I saw we have July 13 on the calendar. Yeah. Is there one on the 4th though? It wasn't.
Yeah, second and fourth.
It wasn't on the calendar, so, but.
Oh,
okay.
for the July,
It might have it in this calendar, but it would be on the website calendar.
Okay,
There's two calendars.
right. That's where I thought I looked, but I could be totally wrong, so. I'll just,
The calendar has every single.
right, yeah, the whole year. That's what I thought.
so,
No, not that. That one only gets posted 2 weeks prior.
so it does bring up a good point. On the meeting schedule down below, it says 22, or June 22nd, which is obviously tonight. So our next meeting is actually July 13th. Okay.
That's all for me.
Okay, Carol?
Yeah, we had a unscheduled, an extra traffic committee meeting, and I think I contacted the ordinance committee regarding that. So hoping to expand that discussion about how we handle, take a look maybe at our pedestrian right-of-way and our uniform traffic code. We're also looking to standardize some of the signage around our trails. This was in relation to the Kinney construction and extending the trail across Kinney there as they're doing that at Waldorf and Kinney. So just talking about what our options are, and again, looking at how we can standardize signage across all our trail crossings and all our roads. So hopefully that's something we can bring before the committee and have a look at. Other than that, I don't think anything.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
I don't have anything other than we're really busy in the clerk's office, but it's a great busy. Mailing out 11 trays of ballots, and Jill's back to our office today, which is great. We've also got Deb helping us and Ava helping us, and yeah, so we're rolling. Everything's good.
Awesome, thank you.
Actually, I did have one more thing. Sorry.
All right.
People have been asking about WIFIC, and I know they're looking to open on the 25th, but if there's any additional information, like I said, a lot of people are asking, so.
Okay. I mean, they're set to open at 5 a.m., I believe it is, on the morning of the 25th, barring the appeal, which just got filed today, so.
Right, I just
So it'll be a little bit of a roller coaster
Are those
here.
going to be regular hours and services then? Okay.
With the proper social distancing measures put in place, there's a lot of plexiglass in there now. Every other machine, in some cases, there might be 2 machines in between. And then heavy sanitation, extra staff in there. Somebody leaves one area, if the member doesn't have to clean it, we're over there cleaning it anyway. So we're taking a lot of preemptive measures. Frank, I can't remember if we were doing anything on the bathrooms or not, the showers.
Yes, since WIFIC closed, they have been working towards what became Executive Order 114, which is the workplace standards list. And so WIFIC is ready and responding to those, the long list for all businesses, for hockey rinks specifically, and for fitness centers specifically. And their case got ready to go. So they will open at June 25th at 12:01 officially. Then we'll be back in business, subject to some operating hour changes that you'll see. The regular limits and things, particularly on the weekend. They're ready to go. For a district court decision that was last Friday. We got, like the mayor said, we got the district court. So we're planning to open on June 25th. Let's stand by. Ready to go.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Walsh?
Just 2 items, HR related.
Awesome, thank you. Real quick on mine, update on the pickleball courts. We've restricted the hours to 8 to 8. We've had more success on the late nights, but there's not as many, but it's still a continual, almost everyday thing. And after about 2 weeks straight of phone calls or text every night, we've actually increased our presence out there to the point where there was some consideration of taking the nets down. We did talk to the organizers for the pickleball court and working with them. I think we're getting the point across to those that are staying out there later and trying to work with them in a pleasant way. So we're taking I think really a very passive approach to working with them as opposed to coming back to this, to the ordinance committee and then the commission and putting an ordinance in place. That's not what we want to do. We want people using them. We just want them to respect the neighbors after 8 o'clock at night and before 8 o'clock in the morning. So we actually have DPW. I went out a number of nights last week, and then DPW helped out as well with going out there, just reminding, kind of an educate and advise of, hey, the hours are 8 to 8, and we'd appreciate. We've got the neighbors right over here, so they've been very helpful with that. And then the pickleball group that came to speak to us, I think a year and a half ago, roughly, and pitching that idea, which I still think is a great idea. Might not have been, as we've gotten into this, the perfect location, but we'll find a way to work with this and get through it. So update on that. So for right now, I think we're in a better spot, and the group using it primarily will help us out. Last 4 minutes, kind of rapid fire here. Employee luncheon we had this past week. I want a special shout out to Shannon for helping organize that again. It was a really good turnout. I think we had 80 or so people out there. Everybody was really spread out, kind of came at different times. Food is outstanding. I want to thank H&I as well for helping pay for the desserts. And then Julie and the DPW crew for helping get everything set up back there. So that was a great turnout back there. Nice to see everybody back together in what's kind of an annual tradition for us in the summertime. Sarah, thank you for the clerk's office bringing more innovation to us. Have worked with Brian. It's been probably about 10 years, but for a good 20 years had worked with him as a vendor in a previous life, and know the innovation and the approach they take, and they don't come much better than that. KCI is a solid company. So thank you there. Also, shout out to Chief Long. On Friday, I think we all saw, or if you haven't, have gotten wind of it by now, very eloquent, I felt on point letter on behalf of the county police chiefs, just kind of summarizing their position, acknowledging the challenges that we have in our community and society, but also recognizing the fact that there does have to be a semblance of law and order in there, and just the support they have behind there. So I thought it was a fantastic letter, and one I support eloquently. I see Danielle sitting out there. I can't say thank you enough for all the work you've done, heavy lifting on the master plan piece. I know you're going to have a lot of work to do over the summer yet. Tonight's not the end of it, but thank you for all your work. And then lastly, second to last, DDA, I did go to the meeting, was it Frank last week? Much different meeting, and actually Commissioner Groders was there as well. I think we could acknowledge it was a much different meeting than it's had before. So the DDA members are actively reaching out to businesses in the Stanville district, checking in on them. So everybody did a conquer and divide, took a number of businesses. They're going out knocking on doors to ask how they're doing. So I think we have a little burst of energy at this point that should be sustainable for a while. So very pleased with that group. And then lastly, although her last day was Friday, I know she's not watching because she's playing with the kids right now. Kendra gave us really for, I think, this last year and a half, all of the efforts and dedication she gave, not just to the city, to me personally, the projects that we took on, the things we didn't do a year and a half ago, and those are big shoes to fill, but I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the efforts and dedication she gave us over the years. So we will miss her, but I know she will always be around if we need her. So that being said, we have about 30 seconds. Once I see that flip to 7 o'clock, we'll get started. right, we're 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the regular commission meeting to order. I'd like to ask Commissioner DeShane to please deliver the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance after.
Dear Lord, tonight I pray for hope. When sadness and uncertainty darkens our world, give us light. When despair numbs our soul, give us hope. When we stumble and fall, lift us up. When doubt assails us, give us faith. When nothing seems sure, give us trust. When ideals fade, give us vision. When we lose our way, be our guide, that we may find serenity in your presence and purpose in doing your will. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. That's great, thank you. We'll invite the audience, please stand us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If I could ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Glanville,
Present.
Commissioner Groders,
Present?
Commissioner Heisinger,
Present.
Commissioner DeShane,
Present.
Commissioner Kent.
Present.
Thank you. And we'll make a motion to excuse Commissioner Gilbert. He was not able to attend.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Support.
Motion Commissioner DeShane, support from Commissioner Kent. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, absence excused. Next on the list is the approval of minutes of the June 8, 2020 commission meeting minutes. Are there any questions on the minutes? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval in a second.
I'll make the motion.
Motion Commissioner Glanville.
I'll support.
I think I heard to my right first, Commissioner Groders. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are passed. Next, I'll open up for public comment on any agenda items. So if you have any public comment on agenda items, please approach the podium. And as you come up there, two things, if you would not mind, please, pressing the button that will turn the little red light on up there. And if you just share your name and address with us, and the floor will be yours. Actually on the microphone piece right there, right in front of you. Yep, if you could.
Press. There you go.
There you
There we
go.
go, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the board. My name is Skip Weller. I'm a property owner of 3 parcels, which comes to, on Wilson all the way through to Kennewa, approximately 60 to 75 acres. I don't know, it's 40-acre parcel, 27-acre parcel, and a 13-plus acre. The 67 of the acres we've had for years and years, been in our family, and I understand in the master plan would like to put a road through our properties, and I'm against that and opposed to that. And we bought the land for privacy, and if I ever develop it, whenever, I'd like to do it on my own terms. That cuts my land in half. I then have frontage on Kennewa, the middle road, the connector road, and then Wilson. And I don't need three frontages through my property. Also, where you want to put that road, I don't know if you know that on our property in Talmadge, which would have 100 acres across the street, we have a FAA regulated airstrip. The flight path is right over Hibmas, right over where you want to, perhaps in the master plan, put a road, a bike trail, or whatever you want to do, and that's a flight path. I don't know if you guys, if the board's aware of that, or the planning commission, but we buried, whatever, it's been there for 30 years. And I don't know if you ever get out of that area, but it's beautiful. We like to leave it that way, and sure, it's probably going to develop, probably not in my lifetime, and I don't know. I'm just opposed to it, you know, and I want to thank you for your time. I love the city of Walker, but thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Weller. And I think to the point is so two things I'll share with you. One on the FAA flight path kind of ties into the second point. This is tonight, we're looking to adopt the draft of the master plan. We have, through a public act, it's going to be, literally 2 months before we take this back up. So that being said, your comments tonight, we'll do some investigation. Frank, our assistant city manager, Danielle from our master planning group are all here, so we'll have to do some investigation because that may have definitely some bearing. That's the first time I've heard that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, are landowners or residents somehow supposed to get notified of different meetings that you have? I don't know how we know unless we go on your website, and some of us are not literate on. I mean, I am, but there's some neighbors that aren't. In the old days, they used to get letters in the mail that say there's a meeting regarding adjacent property to yours, or notices in advance. I don't know if advance is even a newspaper anymore.
No, it's gone.
I don't know how you notify people unless it's on the web. And
They typically, depending on the project, there will be a minimum radius of feet that they actually send that out. And depending on the situation, that may be a wider radius than the normal standard. So in this case, I'm not sure what that was that sent out.
so not to do with the master, but on any developments or something, it would come in the mail to you? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Should be a postcard.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have ever gotten them. And these are adjacent landowners, all of them. And
It's good to know. It says, note that Mr. Wash and I will take back and share with staff and cascade that down.
we were just curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I would say that's not an exact science either. It's probably
it's
some
not.
improvement, so.
All right.
Great, thank you for your words. Anyone else? Feel free. The microphone is yours.
I'd just like to support Skip Weller. My name is Robert Shoemaker, 2635 Wilson Avenue. We've got in this area too that we're talking about, estimated 70 acres that will be impacted by the future. And as far as that new road going back in there, that, I never thought it was getting real serious because I've heard about it for many years. And there was a lot of procedures and processes had to go through to get to it. But I'm starting to feel it now that it could be reality. And I just wanted to let you know that we as property owners, we're just not for that road. It's a beautiful area right now, and going across Skip's property, he didn't mention, but there's wetlands in there. And they can get very expensive to try and build through wetlands, I know, through the state and all that. And I just wonder if the taxpayers are going to pay for that or where it's going to go. But it's just a comment I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker.
Mr. Mayor, thank you all for allowing us to come up here and speak for a moment. I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Weller and Mr. Shoemaker have said. My name's Chad Winkle. I live at 2420 Kennewa. I have about 5 acres, just shy of that. That would be right on this path of the proposed road, I guess. And again, very beautiful area that we have a nice wooded area that we're trying not to see overrun. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Winkle. Congratulations as well on the success of the new Legion post as well. It's a lot of sweat equity you've put in over probably a good year plus time, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again. My name is Bob Bergman, Frank. I live at 2230 Kennewa. We've had lots of interactions with the city, to put it mildly. Not many of them were very amiable, but I respect Frank. I respect the city commission and their job that they have to do. But I'm wondering, we're sitting here talking about a road that maybe or maybe not in the draft. We don't even know. And do you know, is it in the draft?
The road out there?
The road that we're talking about that's going to bisect all the properties.
Not that I'm aware unless I missed the road, is it in detail? Okay. But not as a permanent road, this is the draft version.
Yes, it's a draft version of the plan.
Right.
And we'll get into how I think we can amend that to make everyone happy here and
What's driving this, that we want a road through there? Who's driving this? Whose idea is this?
in the presentation. So I'll go through that. I'm gonna make a recommendation with the property owners in the room that I think we can fix this.
Yeah, and I think the thing in answers is just because we're going through this does not mean that this is, there's not going to be tweaks and adjustment to this over the months as well.
I understand that. I understand that. But to me, myself, having lived there for 50-plus years, it kind of ranks of, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else from the public comment on the agenda items we have in front of us? All right, we'll move on. Thank you for your comments, gentlemen. Next on the list is the consent agenda is the expenditures in the amount of $962,744.24. Are there any questions on the expenditures?
Make a motion to pay the bills. I had one question, but Dan sent me an answer, so we're good.
Thank you, Commissioner Kutz. Commissioner Heisengud, support. I can write my notes down. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll pay the bills. Next on the list, before we get into the resolution, Frank, if I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
So bear with me for 1 second.
Okay.
I think we can solve this issue tonight. I'm going to turn it like this so I don't turn my back on people. Can you hear me up there?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Signal degradation, but that's okay. Let me go over here to get it jumped out. Okay, we had a longer presentation that was like 38 slides long. And it included a whole bunch of properties in the city, but what I did was cut it down to, I think, the major undeveloped land locations in the city. So if you could, bear with me for a second here. Keep in mind that this is a 20-year master plan. So we're projecting out to the year 2040. So this is not an immediate thing. This is what the city is obligated to do under state law, which is to create a plan. And you folks have a history here in Walker, all the way back to 1959, of doing land use planning and then implementing your plan. Now, things change over time. So what we did, let's do this. We tried to put together an agenda here that will allow us to cover a lot of ground, still be reactive, and then paint the next steps, all within the confines of the state law. We've done numerous public notifications, public hearings, public meetings, all over the place. Got out to the different neighborhoods and for more than a year now. So we're at what's called the distribution draft threshold. And the Planning Commission has already reviewed and moved forward to you folks tonight as well. And then we'll come back for the final public hearings. Now, that's just what's required by law. But let's take a look at a couple of things here. Let's take a look at the structure of the master plan document itself, the proposed schedule from here to the end of adoption, and then something that we developed called significant undeveloped lots, which are the big pieces of property in the city from north to south that really act as your build-out plan. These are the properties that are undeveloped, that generally no one wants to see developed except the property owners. But there are some out there that the property owners don't want to develop as well. So that's what I'm hearing tonight. So we're going to make some recommended changes to what's in the plan. Keep in mind that the city staff isn't pushing for development on any properties except maybe the Northridge corridor where we're doing a variety of transactions and brownfields and those kind of things. Otherwise, it's just our job as a city to be prepared for the future. That's generally what it comes down to. And we're obligated to prepare for the future by state of Michigan law. And again, you folks have done that for quite some time. So if you take a look at the document that's out there right now, on the website, it's available. I think we do a much better job now when it comes to getting the word out and having the actual documents available than we did 20 years ago, certainly. It's just much more fluid and much more available, and we rely on you folks, too, to be the conduit to get that word out, and I think it's worked fairly well. But here's where we're at. The document that's out there right now that was just updated for 6/16 it's multiple pieces, it's multiple books. If you look at the bottom of that page, there's book 3 and book 4, which is past Walker master plans back to 1959, and then all of the master plan work we've done since 1998 at the neighborhood level. These are really reference documents that we want to keep in your plan so that for now through the next 20 years, people will be able to see how we got to this point in 2020. The master planning process should be part historical record, part contextual, and then part strategic plan. This is your historical record. If you haven't gone through, it's really interesting to look back, particularly to 1959, which was a long time ago, and you see that the city was the township actually at that point, was benchmarking to a build out of 80 to 90,000 people, and the communities that they were benchmarking to were Flint and Warren, because it was the old Michigan economy. And then you see in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, the evolution of what the concept of what Walker should be has changed. And I assume that in the year 2040, things will probably be different than they are now. But I think we need to be responsive that we're in a populist time. Prescriptive planning is kind of out of fashion. It kind of went out of fashion in the late 80s. So from a staff standpoint, we just want what you folks as decision makers want in the plan. Because it's our job then, as all developers and landowners and other citizens come in and say, what do you have planned there? We can say with certainty, okay, this was adopted by the city. And subject to all the details that come in during individual project review, this is a general vision for the city. So that's really all we want to get to. Okay? So you have multiple books. The last two are really done, book 3 and book 4. Those are your reference documents. The rest are subject to refinement, but we're at that 85% level, which means distribution draft time. It also means that we're trying to meet our target of getting this 2020 plan adopted in 2020. And the state law requires that we kind of go into hibernation for 63 days and take comments from other communities, other utility companies. My history in the past, since 2008, is we don't get any comments. So in this case, I'm going to recommend that we're a little bit more active during that comment period, but you'll see where we go here. But this is the master plan structure. It's available on Facebook. It's available on the website. All the books are out there. Total, it's probably 500 pages. I don't expect everyone to read through that. But we broke it down in individual neighborhoods, and then there's a general overall plan that fit together. But if you're just interested in South Walker or the Alpine area, you can go right to that book and take a look. The individual neighborhood books get into a great deal of detail. And that's really for the Planning Commission and the City Commission to filter through as projects come through. There are strategic guides for design, for roads, for drains, for land use, for density, those kind of things. The big word is density, right? But even apparently the bigger road now, or the bigger word is roads. So I'm going to get into that, and let's just take a look at this for a second, if you don't mind. Here's the schedule where we're at right now. On June 10th, the Planning Commission recommended distribution of the plan. This is all following state of Michigan law, okay? And what they agreed to was we're about 85% complete. Let's move this forward to the City Commission and at least get the draft distributed so we're into that 63-day comment period. Now, my recommendation is going to be that we schedule a work session of the City Commission and the Planning Commission in the interim within that 63-day period and talk about some of the things that we're going to look at tonight, particularly density, particularly road connectivity. And then we also need to comb through the text again and refine that all the way. So that would be my recommendation as the outcome from tonight. If you folks release the distribution draft, then we will put together a work session of City Commission and Planning Commission. and we'll get into some of the details, whatever comments are out there, and get this thing into final draft format, so we can hopefully approve it this fall. And this fall, hopefully, we will do the final public hearing, planning commission recommendation that comes back to you folks for city commission. City commission, by your own resolution, has established you folks, your board is the final word on anything related to the master plan, which is allowed by statute and which I fully support, because you folks, as the elected officials, really should have the last stamp on this thing. There's a planning level, and then there's the political level for all master planning, so I think it's right that you folks have the final say. Okay, so that's the proposed schedule. Any questions so far? I don't want to put anybody to sleep, but because we have all the folks from the Fenske area here, let's jump to that, and then we'll work our way back. Okay? We worked on something that we call significant undeveloped lots, which essentially are what they are. They're big lots that haven't been developed. Nobody around them wants to see them developed. Staff doesn't necessarily want to see them developed either, to be perfectly honest with you. But we are obligated to be prepared, because property owners have legal rights under state and federal law to develop their property consistent with zoning and planning. That process is subject to litigation all over the place. But what we've tried to do in Walker, and I think historically you've done fairly well all the way back to 1959, is paint a reasonable picture in the master plan, and then your planning commission and city commission reviews individual plans, and you try to be as consistent as possible with the master plan. It's not an easy process, as you know. It is complicated, it's controversial. So we're trying to do the best we can to establish some general standards in your plan. Okay, so we put this process together, and bear with me while I click through a little bit. It's going to be crazy because I don't have, we're doing this north to south. Okay. Generally speaking, what we're calling the Fenske area is from Burton to the river, the Grand River, from Wilson Avenue to the county line, which is Kennewa, the middle of Kennewa Avenue. Okay, so you look at all those numbers there, those are all large undeveloped properties. If you start at the river, I believe all the way up to 35 is owned by New Era / Dan Hibma, right? And then we run into the Weller property at 35, and then we get into the Shoemaker properties. So you've got 2/3 of the property owners here right now. Now, what's that? Which one isn't?
38, I think, is Shoemaker property, and 29 to 34, up in that where that numbers are, that's Shoemaker property.
There we go. Thank you for correcting that. So
Frank.
Yeah.
Hilla owns 41 to the river. The west of Kennewa
Yeah.
is Ottawa County.
Yeah.
He doesn't own any land in Ottawa.
No, the westerly edge there is the county line.
Yeah, that's Kennewa.
Yep, that's Kennewa. So that dashed red and white
above
line.
35, that L-shaped parcel is mine as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so generally speaking, except for 40 and 41 then, they are owned by either the Weller Group or the Shoemaker Group.
That's correct.
Okay, 40 and 41 are owned by Dan Hibma Land and Company, New Era. Okay, so you've got a big block of property. Not many people live there. However, it's right on M11 and 196. Okay, so spatially, and then you look over the other side of the river, and it's developed in Granville. This is one of those properties. I've been here 16 years now. And this whole group of properties has been talked about for development, no development, blah, blah, blah. Back in 2005, we went through a master planning process that led to the master plan in 2008 for what we called Subplan 2. So, as we've gone through the updates for 2020, what we agreed upon was just keep 2008 just like it is. That's what we agreed upon, okay? And I believe this is what 2008 looks like in the current version, for some difference in language, but we'll get to this in a second. Generally speaking, the gray properties would be a mixture of industrial, light industrial, and office, and then the tan properties to the north would be some kind of cluster residential. Now, this box picks in all the 5-acre lots and the 10-acre lots that are on Kenowa and on Burton. Those aren't going to change unless the property owners want to change. The issue is, going back to all these large undeveloped lots, over the years, we've heard that there are development interests on these properties. So it's our job to be prepared. Now, if you want, we can make all those properties rural residential or agricultural and just be done with the problem for now. But the challenge is you're looking out 20 years. So is rural residential a viable option on all of these properties? It's certainly something you can do, and I don't have a problem with it. But based on what we've heard over the past, since 2005, this was okay. Industrial, office, light industrial, clustered residential on the Shoemaker sand mine. Shoemaker does have a end of use plan in with the Mineral Mining Board that shows a subdivision on that site. 1 acre lots, but a subdivision. I forgot what it was, 25 units or something like that? Something like that. Now, Mr. Shoemaker's obligated to do that by the Mineral Mining Code. Just so that because the site isn't undermined by gypsum mines, it's considered future development. So under your mineral mining ordinance, instead of just digging a giant hole down and leaving it, this is one that's being planned for some kind of future use. It doesn't mean the city is saying you need to develop that property. It means we need to be prepared just in case it is sold, particularly when sand mining comes to an end. That's the whole reason behind your mineral mining code. You can look at sites in South Walker that have just been over-excavated and really are unusable. Thankfully, Millennium Park came along. There's 1,200 plus acres that was managed to reuse property that had really just been torn apart. And here's a great opportunity for reuse. So on these individual mines, we need to put together some kind of a reasonable plan, subject to change. So you only see maximum residential units, very small in this area. Generally, the majority of them would be on the Shoemaker sand mine. 1 acre potentially clustered. Now here's where the rubber hits the road. We have some stylized drawings in the plan, okay? By stylized, we mean they are conceptual. They use best management practices for things like density, road connectivity, those kind of things. This is the same plan that we have had in effect since 2008 for this site. So again, the wetland and floodplain along the river can't be built on. We know that. There can be some things put in recreational wise, subject to MDNR permit or Eagle permits, no. But then once you get into the Fensky site, which is a brownfield site, you would get into the industrial, transitional office, and then into the clustered 1 unit per acre. Clustered together, you need roads to get to these things. This is all interior land, so it's also our obligation to plan a road network. It comes right out of the state law. So what we put in was a road network that provides access to the Fensky site, the Weller site, and then would connect, subject to design, north through the Shoemaker pit into Burton. Now, there are a couple things you can do with this. You can cut off the connection to the Shoemaker sand mine and just make that a cul-de-sac. That's fine. We can do that. But for the Weller and the Fensky site, the Weller and the Landing Company sites, we really do need to have some kind of road network planned in there, and I'll tell you why. You guys already know. Everybody in this room knows it. M11 is a problem. M11 has some significant restraints on its ability to grow, particularly the bridge over the river. The traffic signal at Butterworth may or may not be in the right spot. Something is going to have to pull the group of all the stakeholders together if Dan Hibma walks in here and says, I want to develop that site. Now, we already talked about multifamily on this site. We started talking about it in 2004. It comes back every few years. And the check the box on this one was no multifamily on the Fensky site. So that stays the same. But somehow we need to be prepared because Dan Hibma may walk in here tomorrow and say, I want to develop that site consistent with the master plan, and then we're going to go, okay, where are the driveways going to go? Where's that traffic light going to go? How are you going to make the traffic work over the bridge? Bridge can't be fixed. It is fixed. It's fixed in geometry. So that's where we're at here. So we can do a couple of things. We can take the road connectivity off and just make a cul-de-sac into the sand mine for Shoemaker. That's fine. But I think these are the kind of things that we need to discuss as a working group. Because Planning Commission may be over here, and you guys are over here, and the neighbors are over here, and that means we don't have a master plan yet. And that means I'm not comfortable with what's going on. I'm comfortable with releasing the distribution draft so we can keep that box being checked, but in the interim, we need to get back together. Okay? And we'll invite all these folks by card.
Frank, can you go back one slide a second, please?
And you're going to ask me that. Let's see. See, without sitting right at the computer. Hold on a second. Previous, right?
There you go.
There we go.
So just to give context, if I'm not mistaken, everything, if I take the line of Burton, everything from Burton and Wilson, west of Wilson and south of Burton, from that down, there currently is not water and sewer.
This area is not served with water or sewer.
Okay. So it's just one thing I want to call out to the commission is you know, the policymakers and listening to the residents and so forth. We have to be very cognizant of the fact that any type of development in there really is going to be better served. I think there's, when I reflect back on some of the developments down off Butterworth and so forth, it still amazes me that there is not water and sewer in there. And you have, quite frankly, $1 million homes that have well and septic. And we have to bring a tanker truck down, and heaven forbid that there's a house fire, that tanker truck empties out in 10 minutes or less. So I want to give us just a perspective of development comes with cost, and they're not going to be cheap. Development could make sense, but it's going to come with that cost. So just neither advocating nor arguing against. I just want to give us a context of what's in that area there, that we really should, really should have water and sewer in that area. So to develop with. Yep.
And your zoning ordinance has that language in there, except for, let's just say Mr. Shoemaker decided that he wanted to sell sand, the sand pit, we're done, and I want to put in 5 to 10 homes in there and run a private road in, large lots. You know they're going to perk because it's all sand, so you can do septic. You know you can get well water down there. That would be probably the only way that development could happen on the Shoemaker site and probably the Weller site without water and sewer. Now, the industrial, it all depends on what wants to go there. Outdoor, heavy industrial, concrete operations, asphalt operations, outdoor storage, those kind of things. There's a standard in your zoning code that says that, you might not need water and sewer there. But is that really what you want a master plan for this property? What's being master planned here is more of industrial park development. If you master plan industrial park, then we need water and sewer. And those are big, like you said, Mr. Mayor, those are big ticket items. Sewer's probably going to have to go under the river to Granville. Water's going to have to come down from the north. Somebody's going to have to pay for that, and that's a right place project, if you ask my opinion.
Yep. I think just it's great insight there. Just make sure that as we go forward, we have an awareness and things to think about and have dialogue too with even some of our friends in the audience here and understanding what could this potentially look like and what price tags are going to come with it. So,
what I would recommend is that this is probably topic number 1 for our work session with Planning Commission. And we would ask you folks, particularly the large property owners, to say, here's what I want for my property in the next 20 years. And if it's no development, then that's exactly what we'll put in the master plan. I have no problem with labeling those green or whatever we want to do to say rural residential, no road through. Okay? I think Mr. Hibma's going to have a different take, but that's fine. That's his property. But we'll invite everyone. We'll make a box, all from Burton to Kennewa to the Rivers to M11, make sure everybody gets a postcard. And there'll be green postcards, and then we'll let you guys know when that session will be in, and we'll bring you in, and I think it'll probably be fairly collaborative. Okay.
I know I have Mr. Winkleman's number, Mr. Weller, Mr. Shoemaker. Shouldn't be hard to track you down either. We will make sure, actually, we'll go the extra step, make sure we have a phone call, and maybe the ask of you, if we're going to go that extra step, is if you could then let your neighbors know if there's others that you would like to be a part of that. So we'll go the extra step here, not just a postcard, not just a Facebook post. We'll make sure we reach out via phone call, and then you can help us spread the word. Is that a fair compromise there? Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Help me understand why this, I mean, they've already voiced their opinions. Last year, I was at a meeting, they voiced their opinions.
Yeah.
So their opinions haven't changed. Do you think their opinions are going to change? Why is the plan saying what it's saying when now I just heard you say, come and tell us what you want or don't want. I think they already did that.
Yeah.
Right? I
Well,
mean,
the direction we took away from the last meeting where we said no multifamily on the Fenske site was keep the 2008 plan in place. So that's what we did. Now, remember, this is an iterative process. So that is the 2008 plan, but it sounds like we need to tune it up a little bit. And that's why there are so many steps to reviewing the master plan, because that document is going to be in place for the next 20 years. So I don't think it's unusual for us to get to this level and say, you know what, there are some things that still need to change. So now I'm going to ask City Commission and Planning Commission to give us specific direction on this part of town. And we'll probably have a plan out, and we'll redline that plan, and we're going to say at that meeting, here's what we're doing in this area. And that's what will go in the final draft. So it's slices of the onion, right? It takes a while to get through these things. And it's also, again, our job is to make, it's a combination of public comment, direction from the Planning Commission, direction from the City Commission. So that's why sometimes things take a while to shake themselves out.
thank you.
Great question.
All right? All right.
Gentlemen, anything else? Any other questions? So maybe before you leave real quick, so the summary of where we're at tonight, just to make sure that we're all aligned. What we're doing tonight is just approving the draft resolution so we can start that process as we get closer. We're a year behind right now in this. And I think particularly on the north end, there's some developments that we put in a moratorium on right now just because we're in the process of finalizing this. So we've had some of our business, some development come to a halt because of waiting for that. So we want to move along in this, but I want to be crystal clear. I think we're all hearing the voices right now, and it's been a consistent voice. My suspicions are they're not going to change. So that being said, we'll make sure that we're doing this together going forward. But what we're approving tonight is just the draft so that it can be actually shared out. And then we've got our 63 days to work with you, more public dialogue from other neighbors, what have you, not just in this area, but we know this is a bit of a hot point, and it's probably the hot point in the city right now. So I want to be crystal clear, you're walking out,
right.
that you're feeling good, there's clarity with what the intentions are.
We'll be in touch.
Yep.
Oh, you know me, I'll slip something in there that's nefarious.
Thank you, gentlemen.
There you go. Thank
You too, thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn my back on Michelle, all right? Is that all right? All right.
Dan.
Danielle. How many times did I call you Michelle?
Probably at least 5.
Yes. Danielle helped us out when Dan Power first left, and I'm getting old, and my brain is slowly falling apart, so I misspoke
Don't
many
let him
times.
off the hook, Danielle.
No, she won't. She won't.
All right.
I like people who will correct me.
And I think too, for the commission, are we all good with the dialogue just now? Of making sure we reach out via phone, we're gonna have a conversation, and we'll let them know when we're gonna be having the dialogue, and looking at refining that, so. I would just want to make sure that as you're having conversations with the residents, that their voices have been heard on this. So, back
Okay.
there.
Okay. here is, now I want to take a couple steps back. With those folks here, I think we all did we wanted to get their comments right up front. In the first book, book 1, which is the largest book of the plan, on page 42, you see this map and the designation of these significant undeveloped lots. Fenske site is way down in the southwestern corner, in the least populated part of town. But sometimes the least populated parts of town generate the most public comment. That's what local planning is all about. But you see that the vast majority of these undeveloped lots are scattered all the way from 4 Mile and Alpine down through Standale to O'Brien. So we've identified all of those lots as, hey, look, these are the properties that have a reasonable possibility of developing over the next 20 years. We really need to have a plan for these lots. And we shouldn't give away the density up front on these things. So you'll see no point in here where 12 units per acre is planned. And that's a change from your 98 plan, where you did have some traditional HDR planned, which was 10 to 12 units per acre. So we've tuned this thing down a little bit so that your maximum, I believe, is 4 to 8 units per acre for future land use, and it's dependent on the location. It sounds like a lot, I realize that. And I'm fine, you folks, it's your city. I'm fine with reducing densities. I don't have a problem with that. So again, those are the kind of general questions that we need to get ironed out. How do we deal with that? Let me, if I can run through some things, because this is really kind of where you were at in 98, and here's projecting forward, keeping in mind that this is a city, not a township. And we need to balance that. And that's really, for the next 20 years, I think that's going to be the struggle for this community. Is, okay, it's the city of Walker, but the general pull is township. And that's going to be a struggle for this community. That's outside of anything financial. That's just land use related. So, let's quick take a look. Please feel free to ask questions. English Hills area, 4 Mile and Alpine. That's pretty citified, right? You get north of 4 Mile, it's not, kinda. Alpine Township has maybe a mixed message there. We're in a farmland preservation township, but we've got water and sewer available. So it's like, well, which is it, you know? But nobody's selling property up there. I've been looking at those lots. We looked at Dave Grunlier and I in 1998. We're looking at how do we fix the intersection of 4 Mile and Bristol. It was in 1998, and it took I don't know how many years to get that done. 15? Because NIBLAD was going to sell, then they weren't going to sell, and then each tree was $5,000, and it took forever. So this is an interesting part of town where you have probably the most intense land use in Walker, and then it immediately drops off to farm. That's the urban edge, and that's a challenge, right? So you've got 3 properties that we called out here, the English Hills Golf Course, the Ingman properties that are the A and SA, and then south of the expressway, north of 3 Mile, east of Bristol, which is owned by, I believe that's Orchard Hill Church. These are 3 big properties that somebody's going to come in and develop. Every once in a while, we hear someone come in and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. No one's pulled the trigger on these yet. If you recall back in 2004, Pulte Development had a really bad plan for the English Hills Golf Course. 660 units. Thankfully, that did not happen. It was only in 2 dimensions, too. It was a preliminary plan. And if you've ever been to English Hills Golf Course, you need to plan that thing in 3 dimensions because there is quite a bit of up and down. So unless you pancake the whole thing, which isn't financially viable, there's no way you're going to get 660 units on that site. England property also drops off. You can see underneath there that there's quite a few wetlands and stream channels. The church property is pretty much open for growth, and we've heard some things over the years. So to speed it along, there's the 3 properties. It's a lot of acreage. What we did was identify in the master plan, hey, look at residential growth. Here's where you're at for maximum residential units on these properties. Maximum. And the reason we want to put those in there in that 2 to 4 unit per acre maximum is so that expectations aren't unreasonable. Otherwise, a developer will come in and say, well, you said I could have 12 units an acre. And then they pro forma everything to 12 units an acre. And then they don't want to back off of that because the property owner is going to sell the property for 12 units per acre. And then it becomes very conflicted. So what we're trying to do on these large properties is say, you know what, where development's going to happen. Here's where the roads should go, generally speaking. Northridge is already precisely platted. And here's the density limitations on these things. Subject to three-dimensional planning. So the number you can see for the English Hills Golf Course is only 556 maximum, so it's already 100 down from the Pulte plan. This is one of those stylized drawings that'll never get built, just like this, but it looks pretty. However, it also shows a bunch of road connectivity. And I guarantee you that we're going to be knocking off some of this road connectivity to this subdivision, the Ipswich subdivision. You see this in here? It makes perfect sense. It gives this, both of these neighborhoods some options other than one terrible spot on Alpine and the other one you have to drive through the Petco parking lot to get to the signal, and that's not a full function signal. But I guarantee you that'll never happen. However, 10, 20 years from now, maybe it will, right? Whole new set of players here in 10, 15 years. So this is more of the stylized drawing that meets the density and puts in, you know, if someone comes in and times change and you want to do something a little bit more urban and that's the way it wants to be, then this is something that, you know, they were thinking in 2020. Okay? This is the bubble plan that I call kind of more of the reality plan as opposed to the stylized plan. And what's in the plan right now is, hey, look, here's a general bubble layout. Kim Sorrell, who owns the golf course, who owns the banquet center, wants to keep that commercial maybe with a couple of outlots. Okay? So we identified that as local business along Northridge. And then a mixture of uses, including senior living, maybe some small attached housing, master plan single family, along the rest of the site. This appears to be fairly reasonable for this property, and that's where we're at from a draft standpoint. But we're going to ask you specifically, what do you want on that property? Okay, that'll be one of the topics for our work session. So think about that. Richmond Farms. Now this one is interesting. It's right in the middle of Walker and Grand Rapids, west side, northwest side kind of thing. If you look around this property, it's all developed. Goodale family owns these properties or subsidiaries of the Goodale family. So there's two properties out there now. The existing zoning is a mixture of A, which is single family residential, double A, which is agricultural, and then multifamily, way back in the middle of nowhere. And then I believe there is industrial along Keyline, which is a completely undeveloped private street. If you haven't driven down Keyline Drive, if you even know where that's at, I encourage you to drive down Keyline Drive and see what's the reasonable possibilities of turning that into a public street. However, here's where we're at from a master planning standpoint. You've got two very large properties, 260 plus acres, right in the middle of town, full water and sewer. Nobody wants to see that property developed except the property owners. Same problem, right? So what we did through the master planning process and through the precise plat process is we put in a connection between Richmond and 3 Mile Road at Keyline. So that's precisely platted already. And then taking the existing zoning and blending it into what may be a viable future, 2 to 4 units per acre, which tends to shake out single family and duplex on the south towards Richmond, and then getting into more of the multifamily that's more consistent with the zoning, but only 4 to 8 units per acre, not 12. You have an apartment complex just east of Elmridge that gives us no problems. I forget the name of that one. It's south of 3 Mile, east of Elmridge. You never even know it's there.
Royal
Vista. Okay? Never hear about it. Does just fine. So that's more of the concept there, where you have this isolated piece. If you want to get the road through, you're probably going to have to put something in there that blends up against the industrial on Keyline. Okay?
Can you just jump in for a second?
Feel free.
Just so you guys know, for a little bit of reference, if it wasn't evident already, the pink and purple hues that you see, those lines are non-motorized connections, and then the blue would be like your proposed neighborhood streets, essentially, just so you know for a little bit extra context.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So this one is another complicated one, and we're going to ask you specifically, here's what's in the plan, what should we change? Okay. West Standale, now this is one that's unusual. Standale itself is unusual. We identified this way back in 2005 with the DDA, and we said, at that time we did a market analysis, which is completely irrelevant now. But we brought in a guy named Howard Cohn from the East Coast, and he did a market analysis for the DDA, and it was really kind of interesting. A lot of unique factors were identified, one of which is young people going back and forth between the GVSU campuses. That has led to the BRT. There's been a lot of evolution of what we identified as unique in Standale. Remember, that's when Meyer first landed there as well. At that time, I remember, that was right when I came on board here, and everyone was saying that Meyer's going to kill Standale, and the traffic is going to be out of control, and it's a double-edged sword, right? It's either nothing's happening in Standale or too much is happening. I think that's just part of being in a suburb, I guess. But what we're looking at here specifically is all the land west of Meyer to the county line, south of M45. Interestingly, all but the Goodwill owned by the Goodale family. So again, another significant holding of property. See the existing zoning, that long line of C4, I have no idea what that went in there. That's some remnant. Maybe it was going to be a car lot or something like that way back when. But that's the existing zoning. So you've got a lot of property there, not a huge amount of acreage. You see these crazy long parcels that most likely would just be developed as a unit. So what we've identified, which is consistent with the master plan you already have for the sub-plan, is a neighborhood commercial strip with best design principles along M45, and then residential growth 4 to 8 units per acre in that area. Now remember, there's a large cemetery to the west. It's commercial to the east and to the north, and to the south it's all Goodale property as well, undeveloped. So because it is downtown, what we've developed over the years and what we're reaffirming here is, look, this may be the place where you want to do some residential density. That's what we've been planning since 07 or 08. But we're going to ask you specifically, do you want that? So think about that. And then if you want to look at the detail of what we're talking about, it's in the individual Standale book. Actually, it's in the South Walker book because of the way that the census tracts lay out. Okay. And this is a stylized drawing that actually is consistent with what we've seen from the property owner so far, which is interesting. This one, I think, has a realistic chance over the next 20 years. This is, and we've worked with the Goodales on this. You see the connection, see where Meyer's at? Recall that we're converting that southerly Meyer service drive into a public street. We got to that point by working with the Goodales here and saying, hey, look, you need to build in some public streets here, folks. We can't redesign what we did on Alpine, where everything is just parking lot connections. You need to build some streets as a backbone. And I didn't want to get into that here, but one of our responsibilities as a city is to make sure that you're planning for transportation. And vehicle transportation is 99% of the issue. Here we got the BRT, which is a little bit unusual for us. And then we've got the number 9 on Alpine, which is very significant, et cetera. But this thing, with the mixture of uses and the layout of streets, it looks a little bit more urban. It'll match that 4 to 8 unit per acre. And it's different because Standale is different. At least this part of Standale is different. So think about that. Lincoln Lawns. Now here's one that has bounced around. The first iteration that we saw in January, they filed for Planning Commission review, folks. You know what that means? It's public information. If you give the planning department a application and site plans and you pay the fee, that means it's now for public consumption. So they did that, but for whatever reason, the property owner, which is AMF, the bowling company, they own both of those blue lots on there, the bowling alley and the golf course. AMF wouldn't sign, huge fiasco. We apologize profusely to people that it got to that point. However, the developers are still talking about developing this property. AMF is apparently on board now. I think we've been saying, wait a minute, because you can't get the group together, a large enough group together under the COVID restrictions to hold the proper public meetings for this thing. Is that fair to say?
I would say it's uncompromising. I mean, we've said that they have to have an open house with the public, not on a city facility, and there's probably going to be a fair amount of turnout, probably hundreds of people at this.
Yeah.
You have to have this, or don't, we're not going to accept the plan otherwise. That is non-negotiable. So the public needs to have a voice in this. It's going to be a controversial project if it ever gets off of the ground. But so far it's been less than ideal as far as the smoothness of it. Probably is a good description.
We like to have confidence in the process. I don't have a lot of confidence in this one.
No.
However, we're also obligated to provide due process. So we have application plans and fee paid. We're keeping them on ice because of the COVID-19 restrictions on large gatherings. But eventually, someone's going to come in and look at all that property. It's apparently for sale, and they're going to want to do something with it. It's currently zoned agricultural, okay, 1 unit per acre. As you can see, around it is all built out. So here's another one of these last remaining open spaces with everything around it built out, including some fairly large apartment complex to the east in Grand Rapids on M45 with a BRT bus stop there, a new traffic signal at Maynard. We've got some mixed signals, right? Keep it rural, but it's right in the city. This one's going to be a challenge for everybody. So the total is 105 acres. That's a lot of land. What we're showing in the current master plan are a couple of things that I can tell you right away are going to be controversial. The road connectivity, best practice, we should make those road connections. Are they going to happen? I have no idea. We're going to ask that question, whether we should have them on the plan or not. The challenge for this site is they're not going to get a traffic signal on M45. New one just went in at Maynard, which is right there. So conceptual plans and all that, that's great. We keep saying to them, you need to sit down with MDOT and figure out your access management plan here. And I'm not hearing a lot of feedback on that. Because this whole 105 acres somehow is going to have to come out on M45, regardless of the land use, whether it's 1 unit an acre, 2 unit an acre, 2 to 4 that's in the yellow subdivision to match subdivision, 4 to 8 up against the apartments that are over the line in Grand Rapids. And then some infill commercial potentially along the road. Okay. Think about that one, because that one is out there. Yes.
Frank, does it have city water and sewer?
Yes. So full utilities on M45 surrounded by development of different densities with roads stubbed into it. So this is going to be a good challenge for everybody, right? All right. And then we get back to the Fenske area. And that is it. So where I'll leave you at, number one, thanks for being patient because we talked a long time, but I wanted to bring you guys up to speed on where we're at. And hopefully you understand the process and what we're trying to do here a little bit better. So we do have a resolution, and I asked you to consider the resolution. Completely up to you folks.
We skipped Stanley Orchard. Is there a reason for that?
Stanley Orchards was one of those that I think we've master planned 2 or 3 times. So I hope that, and we did so much public outreach on that one, and we're working with the property owners through the Mineral Mining Review Board, and it appears that their end use plan is consistent with the master plan.
Oh, okay.
So we're not expecting, famous last words. We're not expecting much controversy on that one. The controversy was when that hill turned into a hole. And I could totally understand that, but, and I don't want to get too much into zoning code and zoning law and mineral rights and those kind of things. But remember, if you're familiar with that Stanley Orchards property, southwest corner of 3 Mile of Bristol, right in the middle of the first ward, right, our urbanized ward, and a sand mine was proposed. Well, under state law, the city cannot say, no, you just can't sand mine there, because the sand is there. And that's bounced through the courts and the legislature for the past 20 years. But we can enforce our mineral mining code. But that went from a big stand hill with an apple orchard on it to now a big hole in the ground. But their end use plan includes a road network,
Might not be perfect, but there's a road network in there, and then the land use is designated on there. That's consistent with the master plan. Now it's up to the property owner on that one. So that's why, we're not picking on Stanley Orchards by any means.
No, I didn't know if you missed it or.
No, we get to look at that one on a regular basis through mineral mining. And it's evolved and it's changed, and hopefully there'll be some future industrial development on there, and then along Bristol will have to be some kind of residential, not multifamily, not 12 units an acre like was being proposed.
Thank you. Great detail. A lot of things to think about, and we have a couple of months to do that. So what is in front of us is an ask to approve Resolution 20-567 to distribute the 2020 City of Walker Master Plan according to the Michigan Public Act 33 of 2008. So before entertain votes, what have you, just to make sure that questions have been asked, answers have been given, any dialogue that needs to take place. So I'll open it up. We'll go left to right. Commissioner Ken, anything? Commissioner DeShane? Commissioner Isaiah? Coming over? Yeah. All right. So with that being said, and I want to, kind of reinforce this again, this is to distribute the draft version, nothing more. And we're going to have a lot of dialogue and some work sessions, COVID permitting here in the next 63 days. So that all being said, I'm going to entertain a motion in support for Resolution 20-567.
I'll make a motion.
Motion Commissioner Glanville. Do we have support?
Support.
Support from Commissioner Heisinger. Any other discussion on this? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Resolution 20-567 is passed.
Thank you. And we will schedule a joint session, City Commission, Planning Commission, either in July or August. We'll look around and see what I know those are vacation months, see what we can do, but we'll hold it at Fire Station 2 upstairs. So we've got more room to spread out. Still have the AV stuff there, but it'll give people more room to social distance.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for all the work on this.
You
Super
got it.
helpful. Danielle, thank you again. Appreciate that. So, or Michelle or whatever. All right. I see no other public comment out there, so we'll move past that. We've covered our comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, then we'll get out.